All right. So going over some basic housekeeping, this meeting is being recorded. And just as a side note, at this time, CDSS is not allowing AI meeting note recording. So if anyone was planning on using that feature, please disable it at this time. Thank you. Also, this meeting is in webinar format, so we do not have a chat feature. Instead, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. We're taking note of each question and we'll answer them, hopefully get all, during our open forum Q&A segment at the end of the session as time allows. If we run out of time to respond to all of the questions, do not fret. The slide deck with all the relevant resources and also the Q&A will be sent out after the forum. So the faces seen in the photos here are the people that make up our program innovation section as well as our data team. Some are old, some are new, but still the awesome team that you're used to, many of which you'll hear from today. But before we get started, we're going to do a little icebreaker. So no worries, I'm not going to bore you with the typical what are your summer plans? Actually, quite the opposite. So for me, I have a large family, and around this time, there's always a lot of parties going on, and sometimes I just get partied out, to be honest. So with that being said, what is the zaniest excuse you've used to get out of doing something or going somewhere? Again, we don't have chat, so we'll use the Q&A feature. I'm looking for ideas. Okay, Veronica, give my dog a bath. That one actually is true. I do have to give my dog a bath. Shoes. Okay. Has that one actually worked? I wonder, does the dog one work if you don't have a pet? Okay. Well, as you guys continue to list your answers in the Q&A, we'll go ahead and go over the agenda. So we actually have a packed agenda today. First off, we're going to be celebrating county successes thus far. Woohoo. And then Anthony will be recapping some of the common themes that we've seen in the progress reports that have been recently sent in. Then Seth will guide us through our newly designed website. Erica will give us updates about the upcoming second CQI cycle. Then Liz will do a subcommittee recap. And Sarah will will present on the rebranding of the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee. Then we have Alex, who has some data resources to share with you all. And Johnny will provide an update of the phase 2 validation timeline. After that, Jaspreet will go over the housing measure decisions. And then Anthony will lead us in the open forum Q&A to answer any questions. Now, I'll hand it off to Jessica to kick us off with some celebrations.
Thank you, Anisha, and good morning, everyone. So, as Anisha just said, we want to continue this forum by celebrating some of the successes of the first CQI cycle. I like to highlight, first of all, our community of practice sessions, which we've been holding monthly. We're extremely proud of the collaboration, the participation, and the support that we've observed during those meetings. We've been able to spotlight counties and their successes, their challenges. We've also observed HHSAs respond to the call for collaboration by sharing their best practices and systems that they've put in place, which have benefited many of us. Additionally, these meetings began with the full support of our contracted partner, Mathematica, in the lead role of facilitator. And we've recently transitioned those meetings to being led by our CQI specialist. Again, just want to say we appreciate the opportunity to learn, collaborate, and support each of you within that space. Next, I'd like to highlight the completion of the CSA, the SIP, and most recently, the very first progress report. So our team has been continuing to work with counties on finalizing progress reports. However, you may have noticed several reports have already been posted on our website. So hats off to our HHSAs for completing those reports. We know they took a tremendous amount of hard work and they definitely highlight the incredible continuous improvement and best practices happening within the state. Lastly, we are almost at the conclusion of the first CQI cycle, which is a success in and of itself. Some of us have been present throughout the entirety of the cycle, starting in 2021. Others may have just jumped into the work and are learning what it means to engage in continuous quality improvement. But regardless of what your situation is, we want to highlight the success of you being present with us and partaking in the ongoing work that we've engaged in throughout this cycle. So thank you. I'm now going to pass it off to AT, and he's going to cover some of the themes that we've seen throughout the first round of progress reports.
Good morning, folks. I'm going to start off with sharing challenges that several counties experienced during the first progress reports. When setting their SIP goals, counties relied on having more funding to implement their strategies. Budget cuts definitely hindered some counties' abilities to provide more services and incentives for clients. Many counties reported that they intended on hiring more staff to help support their SMART goal efforts. Budget cuts had an impact on this as well. Smaller counties struggled with the publicly available data due to the identification of small population numbers, which was creating barriers for identifying subpopulations and analyzing progress towards their SIP goals. Data lag was something that almost every county has experienced, and that's why I wanted to acknowledge it. I think the more important focus of the progress report was implementation of your strategies and setting the foundation. With progress report 2, there will be more data available to analyze and reflect on. And now let's talk about county success. A lot of counties that focused on outreach resources found it highly beneficial. Some counties redid their whole marketing campaign and developed new resources for clients and staff. Something I kept reading in reports was that staff feel heard and inspired by seeing the wheel of change turning. At our last community of practice session, one of the counties talked about how they had staff leading the sessions for their management team. They're making sure that every voice gets heard, and it's paying off for those counties. It seems that the peer reviews sessions become more and more beneficial throughout the CQI cycle. I think counties are starting to not feel siloed and are reaching out to fellow counties for advice and best practices more often. I think a lot of counties plan on relying heavily on the data dashboard to track their progress and have come to realize over the course of the CQI cycle that developing an internal tracking system is beneficial in support of the data available on the dashboard. The use of tools like ad hoc reports and progress tracking spreadsheets helps several counties better analyze their results for Progress Report 1. And now I will pass it on over to Seth.
Thanks, AT, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to walk you through our newly relaunched website. This is a project we've been working on to better serve the evolving needs of our county partners. This relaunch was guided by direct input from counties and our contracted partners over at Mathematica. And our main goal with this initiative was to enhance the user experience and ensure counties have streamlined access to the most relevant tools, data, and guidance. So let's briefly walk through the website. Cool. So our new homepage layout has been redesigned with usability and clarity in mind. This layout is cleaner, navigation is more intuitive, and we've prioritized quick access to high traffic areas. So whether you're looking for reports, resources, or support, you can get there in fewer clicks. We've also added some visual cues to help explain our CQI cycle and to help users find what they need faster. Next would be our CQI reports and reporting information page. This space has been reorganized so that counties can easily find all of the due dates and timelines for the entire cycle and access past and current reports. We've also added clear descriptions and guidance so it's easier to understand what's required for each reporting cycle and can be used as a resource for folks to better understand each aspect of our CQI cycle. So moving along to our technical assistance and recorded trainings page. This page is now a hub for all support materials. You'll find training videos, slide decks, and information for the whole CQI cycle. We've also centralized data and performance measure information, making it easier for counties to locate the support resources that are most relevant to their needs. Our performance measures FAQ page has been restructured to be more intuitive and easily searchable. Instead of one long list, we've grouped questions by category for easier navigation. This should help counties get quicker answers without having to scroll through unrelated content. This page is a living document that will be updated with new questions over time as county needs continue to evolve, and performance measure one-pagers will be added in the future. The last page we wanted to share today was the County Toolkits page. This is where we've pulled together curated, ready-to-use resources for implementation, planning, and outreach. The organization of the toolkits on this page allows for quick scanning so counties can grab what they need quickly and move forward. So we're really proud of these changes and truly grateful to everyone who contributed to this relaunch effort. These website improvements reflect county feedback and are built to grow with our needs. So we do encourage counties to check out the new and improved CDSS landing page to get a feel for these updates. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to your CQI specialist. But I'll also pause here and open the floor for any questions related to the website relaunch. Cool, so that concludes our high-level tour of the CDSS landing page. Next, I'll pass it over to Erica to give us some updates on the second CQI cycle.
Thanks, Seth. Good morning, everyone. Like Seth just mentioned, I'll be providing some updates on the second cycle. As you guys should know, the first cycle ends on June 30th, 2026, which if you look at the calendar, that's less than 12 months from now. That means that the second cycle will be beginning on July 1st of 2026. Looking forward to the second cycle, if you participated in the Cal-OAR optimization subcommittee, you may remember that many key elements of the process remain the same. Counties will still be required to submit a county self-assessment, a system improvement plan, and 2 progress reports during the second cycle. We are currently finalizing the due dates for the next cycle, and that information will be shared in an upcoming ACIN later this summer. That said, there are several important updates. Based on valuable feedback from the optimization subcommittee, as well as lessons learned from the first cycle, we've implemented a few changes to improve the process. One major change is a more balanced distribution of counties across the 4 reporting cohorts. In assigning counties, we did consider several factors such as county size, CalWORK's caseload size, and geographic location to promote fairness and manageability across the board. Additionally, the timeframes between phases have also been extended. This adjustment is intended to give both counties and our team adequate time to complete each phase before moving on to the next. This helps ensure that a smoother transition and better quality between submissions. So we look forward to working with you again in the next cycle, and I will pass it over to Lizzie.
Thanks, Erica. Good morning, everyone. So First of all, I just want to start by thanking all of you who have participated in the subcommittees over the last almost 2 years at this point. We've had 3 subcommittees. One was the subcommittee that did CQI on the CQI itself. That was the optimization subcommittee. And the work of that subcommittee has come to a close for the time being. So thank you again to those who participated in that work. We also have 2 subcommittees that are continuing to meet in an ongoing manner. One of those is the Performance Measures Subcommittee. So this subcommittee convened about a year and a half ago to review some potential changes to performance measures as they were written in ACL 1940 based on changes to policy and practice over the years, as well as to give folks a chance to learn more about the new federal reporting requirements mandated by the 2023 Fiscal Responsibility Act, which is separate than reporting associated with California's participation in the pilot, which has come to an end. After careful consideration, we believe that the Performance Measures Subcommittee will likely continue to meet in an ongoing basis at a cadence that is still yet to be determined. We're going to reach out to all of you to understand what kind of meeting cadence you would like to meet with. This is because as we continue to do CQI on our CQI process, we realize that there will continue to be policy changes that impact the Cal-OAR performance measures, and we want to have an opportunity to make sure that changes to those performance measures reflect the feedback from a variety of stakeholders. So look out for some communication from us about scheduling those. I think a quarterly cadence sounds right, but want a chance for everybody to weigh in on that, of course. And also, the last time we met, we were still working on the child care access rate and the housing assistance and homeless support program access rate. We are still going to be working on those as well. We need to finish our work on those, but we also recognize that there are going to be some opportunities for other performance measure updates to be made in light of potential policy changes. Lastly, we have the Baselines and Thresholds Subcommittee. This will be reconvening in late summer or early fall. Again, please keep an eye out for communication from Erica Saldana on that. We are going to be reviewing the baselines and thresholds calculation methodology and finalizing that. And then we need to develop a process for dispute resolution. The Cal-OAR authorizing statute does mandate that we will meet with an advisory committee or the subcommittee to develop a process for dispute resolution for the thresholds. And so please keep an eye out as we will meet as a subcommittee throughout the fall to reach a process to do that with. I'm happy to take questions specific to the subcommittees and our ongoing meetings. But if there are none, I will pass over to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. And I'm just pausing a moment to confirm whether there are any questions coming in or not before I jump in.
No questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Delana. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Mullen, and as mentioned before, I'm going to be talking about the rebranding of and the repurposing of the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee. Before getting it right into the repurposing, I'll first provide just a little bit of background on the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee. So implementing Cal-OAR statute called for a stakeholder working group to be assembled, which is what became the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee. And this committee was tasked with accomplishing 3 things. Those were to identify performance indicators, create a county self-assessment process, and create a CalWorks improvement plan for counties, all of which they did. In addition to achieving these 3 accomplishments, the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee also helped to inform program and policy improvement recommendations and helped to structure some conversations around how programmatic change could be implemented. Just a couple examples of these contributions include developing policy recommendations to address barriers to successful implementation of Cal-OAR, and how to embed continuous quality improvement into the core framework of the program. Next slide, please. So now getting into the repurposing, there are two key drivers that led to this rebrand and this shift in the committee's focus. The first is that as Cal-OAR enters into its second cycle, we can transition away from planning for implementation of Cal-OAR and move more into designing and planning for a deeper examination of Cal-OAR as a holistic program assessment system, and then fully integrating it into CalWORK's operations and practices. The second is that the objectives of this second cycle align with the vision that, on the one hand, as most of you are aware and were anticipating, we'd already worked into our pilot theory of change, and that was for the federal work and family well-being pilot. This is important because although California will not be participating in that pilot, we were able to articulate our commitment to overall program improvement and our shared vision of working toward a CalWORKs that is more goal-directed and family-centered in its service delivery approach. Next slide, please. So getting a bit into what this rebranding will mean, this repurposing will basically broaden the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee's scope to include a focus on long-term program improvement, cultivating and integrating into practice a more holistic and family-centered program, as I mentioned before, implementing policy changes to ensure that program activities are resulting in desired outputs, and considering program interventions that, again, as mentioned before, lead to longer-term employment and the real economic mobility and family stability that we all envision. So to share just a bit about the committee's anticipated work early on, one, we're excited to have partnered with Mathematica to help facilitate this rebrand. And with their facilitation, some of the committee's early work will focus on helping us to, for one, land on a name for this effort. Despite the title of this slide, it will not actually be named the CalWORKs Advisory Committee. That is a placeholder for now. Also, together, we will articulate a shared vision for the future of CalWORKs. We will develop a roadmap to move beyond kind of what I was describing before, move beyond Cal-OAR implementation and more into supporting ongoing program improvement. And we'll be looking to the committee to propose actionable policy and administrative changes and CalWORKs implementation approaches to help us to better center family engagement, reduce administrative burden, and support local implementation. Next slide, please. Finally, sharing a bit about the committee's composition and our planned kickoff. This committee will include representatives from CDSS, the County Welfare Directors Association, some of our counties, Parent Voices, our Advocates Coalition, the Senate and Assembly, Tribal TANF, the Department of Labor, the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office, the Child and Family Policy Institute of California, or CFPIC, and our labor union, SEIU. And then, as mentioned before, the committee will be facilitated by our partners at Mathematica, who we're thrilled to be working with on this effort. We do plan to begin meeting in August. We are going to be reaching out to committee members very soon to select some initial meeting dates. And before pausing for questions on all of that, we also would really like to extend our deep gratitude for the great work that the Cal-OAR Advisory Committee has already done. We're really looking forward to regrouping and continuing this partnership as we all work together to keep improving this program for our families. So with that, I will pause. And Delana, I know we wanted to look for any questions folks might have about the rebranding.
Yes, we're gonna just pause here, like you said, to see if some questions trickle into the Q&A or the chat. Alrighty, I see a couple questions coming in. Jasmine has asked for the CalWorks Advisory Committee, which counties are a part of that group?
The counties, I am just double checking, so I'm fact checking myself. The counties we currently have are San Diego, San Francisco, and LA.
Alrighty, our next question, um, I think Alicia has put in chat, we have some changes in staff recently. How can we, oops, it's moving. How can we add people to any of these?
Sorry, Delana, I'm not sure I totally caught the question.
I think Alicia is asking how can they invite folks to these committees because they had some recent staff changes.
I see. Um, I think I would say, and Katie, please feel free to jump in. I would say if if there's interest in participating, to send myself and Katie an email to inquire. Yeah, thanks, Katie. She just put her email address in there. So we could put both hers and mine in the chat or share out with this group if folks are interested. We welcome you to reach out and inquire, and then we can get back to you.
Righty. Excuse me. Our next question is, what is meant by parent voices?
So parent voices, and again, anyone who can elaborate, please feel free to jump in. This is a community organization that we partner with, both in terms of staff for the organization and um, the parents and folks with lived experience that they work with and partner with. So we have representatives of each, both staff and parents, sitting on the committee. But Lizzie, Erica, others, please feel free to jump in and elaborate on that or edit what I've said.
Alrighty. Our next question is it possible to include counties representing all CalSAUS regions?
I might defer to others on that one.
This is Lisa Witchy. I can jump in real quick for CalWorks. We will work with CWDA on representation. Thanks for the suggestion. We also didn't mention it in this slide deck, but we will be launching a community of practice soon in the coming months, and that will be really broadly open to county participation. So if participation in the advisory committee doesn't happen, this other community of practice to support local implementation would definitely be a great fit. So more to come on that effort.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next question is, how often will this advisory committee be meeting? Monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly?
Sarah, do you want to take a stab or you want me to share?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I think that we are open to the views of the advisory committee, but I think we are initially thinking about meeting on a monthly basis for the first two sessions and then from there a quarterly basis. But again, open to feedback.
Thank you. I believe we're on our last question. We might have another one, but how were counties selected for the initial advisory committee and asking if they can still join?
Sure. So we consulted with our partners at CWDA to work directly with the counties to determine which counties would be represented in the advisory committee. And if you are a county and you have an interest, feel free to send us an email and we're happy to circle back with CWDA.
And our last question before we move on, will the recommendation agreed by the committee be applied to the current Cal-OAR cycle?
I'm happy to take a stab and welcome others to chime in. So we are looking forward to the recommendations that come out of this committee, and we will take them back for consideration. And I think that's what we can share at this time.
I can jump in with a little more context there. Over the years, we've received a number of pieces of feedback and recommendations from the Cal-OAR advisory committees, some of which are, suggestions, recommendations for policy changes that CDSS is not able to implement ourselves, right? It's recommendations about pieces of legislation that folks think would be helpful moving forward. And we take note of those, that those are the recommendations of the committee and share them, but we do not act on them. We've also received other pieces of recommendations for things that we can act on, some of which are things we can act on in the short term, same cycle, and some of which we need to delay into later cycles. So it really depends, Leonardo, what kinds of recommendations are being made about what areas specifically, and what you're trying to target is kind of the more nuanced answer there. And so, this broader advisory committee that is sort of relaunching, right, is going to be looking really holistically at opportunities to shape the CalWorks program to more fully incorporate Cal-OAR into it. That's going to be the sort of thing that works on a longer time horizon. Some of that might be implemented in the second cycle, and some of it might be things that need to pause until the third cycle in order to not disrupt the CQI reports for the second. So, it's really going to be case by case, but we really welcome your thoughts. I think if you look and see the reports we've shared out from the advisory committees, we take all contributions quite seriously and lift them up and share them out. We want to hear from you. So thanks for your interest.
Thank you, Lizzie, and thank you, Sarah. With that, I'm going to pass it to Alex to go over data resources.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. As you may know, working with data can be incredibly challenging. Thankfully, CDSS has prepared a variety of helpful data resources that will help you understand the data landscape and business practices. On the Cal-OAR website, we've published the Cal-OAR Training and Technical Assistance page. This page houses a variety of recorded trainings that we've held in the past, such as the Cal-OAR Data Overview Training, Cal-OAR Phase 1 and Phase 2 trainings, and the Performance Measure Transmittal trainings. Additionally, this page houses the Cal-OAR Performance Measure crosswalks and a running document that contains the most frequently asked questions from counties. In this FAQ document, you'll find a variety of answers to the questions that your county may have. Lastly, on this page, you'll find the County Data Resource Guide. This document is geared towards newer county staff who are learning to navigate Cal-OAR tools. Furthermore, we have a page called Cal-OAR County Toolkit. This page houses our planning tools, engagement tools, budgeting tools, and more. Most importantly, you'll find a section called Data Toolkit. This section contains the Phase 0, 1, and 2 performance measure calculators. Additionally, you'll find a document titled Data Toolkit, which seamlessly summarizes the performance measure data flow, the internal and external sharing of Cal-OAR data, how to obtain non-de-identified data, and the CDSS de-identification methodology. Lastly, we've included a link to the ACL 1940, which is our most referenced all-county letter regarding Cal-OAR and CalWorks. As always, if you have any further questions regarding relating to data or data resources, please do not hesitate to reach out to your CQI specialist. I will now pass it to my colleague, Johnny.
Thank you, Alex. I'll be going over the Phase 2B validation timeline. This will be very similar to the Phase 2A validation process. However, instead of validating performance measures, we are asking counties that are volunteering to help us validate our data look at the variables of each performance measure. The team is currently finalizing the validation templates for each variable that will be sent to volunteer counties. The process is largely the same as I mentioned. Volunteers counties will help us validate our data. Afterwards, CDSS will meet with each county to discuss findings and resolve any issues. And once validation is complete, the validated measures will be produced on a regular schedule. We are also working on an updated Phase 2 training PowerPoint, which will be released. And on the right-hand side, you can see the measures that will be excluded. These include the Homeless Assistance and Housing Support Program access rate and Child Care access rate. Last, you can refer to the Phase 2B validation memo for more information. I will now pass it on to my colleague, Jaspreet.
Thank you, Johnny. We want to provide an update on the Homeless Assistance and Housing Support Program access rate measure, which, as Johnny mentioned, will be excluded from Phase 2B validation. This measure has posed some unique challenges and opportunities. With that in mind, in April 2025, the Cal-OAR Performance Measures Subcommittee met to discuss how to move forward with this measure. At that meeting, we discussed the results of a survey that CDSS administered to counties in June of 2024, which was designed to gauge how comfortable counties are with entering housing support program data into Cal-SAS. The survey results showed that while many counties can utilize Cal-SAS for this data entry, some currently do not. Based on these survey results and on discussions with stakeholders, CDSS presented the subcommittee with multiple options for collecting HSP data, which is acronym for Housing Support Program. And these options included an option to delay the implementation of the measure. We discussed and solicited feedback on each option, and ultimately the subcommittee recommended that we delay implementation. Delaying the measure allows us to leverage the changing data landscape and potentially reduce duplicate data entry burden on counties. Notably, the CDSS Housing and Homelessness Data Reporting Solution, or HHDRS, is being launched in 2025 through a phased approach. HHDRS will collect data on multiple CDSS housing programs, including the Housing Support Program. Pressing pause on this Cal-OAR performance measure gives us the chance to assess how these emergent data solutions could potentially intersect with Cal-OAR. For this reason, CDSS has decided to delay the implementation of the Homeless Assistance and Housing Support Program access rate measure. With that, I believe we have a few moments to take any questions at this time, or of course, you're always welcome to send in any questions as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so with that, I believe we can move on to the next slide, please.
Thanks for the update, Jazz. Now we'll take a few minutes to address some questions we've received in the question and answer box. The Q&A box is located at the bottom right of your screen, or if you prefer, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll take you off of mute so that you can ask your question out loud. The raise hand icon is located at the bottom right center of your screen, and now I'll pause for questions. We have one. Mahane is confirming the whole measure is delayed, correct? Jazz, I think that was for the last slide.
Yeah, I was typing out an answer, but I can just take that live if that's easier. Yes, at this point, the whole measure, we are looking to delay it, pending some changes yet again in policy, specifically around how housing data is being collected. So this decision is, being made in conjunction with our partners in the Housing and Homelessness Division. And we think that there's some great opportunities on the horizon to really streamline the data collection process around this. And so we will be continuing to revisit this with the performance measures subcommittee as we meet. But we think we have a solution on the horizon that is going to make the data collection much less stressful for all involved. But it will mean delaying it by a little bit further.
Thank you for that clarity, Lizzie. I will pause a little longer for any other questions that we may have. With the legislation changes to not apply a sanction in 90 days, how will Cal-OAR address this new law to Cal-OAR measures that involve timeliness, excuse me?
Yeah. Hey, Leonardo. Can you say more? So, yeah, we're looking to county workers, to not impose a sanction in the first 90 days. But as I currently understand it, and granted, this is very, very new, so I would love to hear if I'm not understanding this correctly. There would still be an expectation that participants in the program will move through the same early engagement steps to fully become engaged in CalWorks and welfare to work if applicable. They just won't be sanctioned in that first 90 days. So we would still expect people to move through the process. I believe there may be some changes coming to the appraisal process, and we will be working with the performance measure subcommittee to consider how we might adapt OCAT specific performance measures to the new policy. But my understanding is that folks will still be expected to fully participate. The 90 days is about granting some grace as they do that so that they won't be financially penalized potentially for not fully jumping in. Please let me know if I'm not tracking things correctly. This is very, very new. And my emphasis is, program evaluation in the CQI process, policy. Sometimes, I need the experts to help me out a little bit. So would love to hear more.
Yeah, this is Leo, by the way. Yeah. Well, two things, right? So there's also the step change, right? That the one I'm concerned about is the OCAT timeliness because it goes off of cash approval, right? So once a cash gets approved, it comes into the denominator for the OCAT timeliness measure, right? So it comes in, right? So the clock starts ticking at that point. And I know we haven't even addressed the step part, but for step clients, they don't need an appraisal anymore if they've had one before within the last 12 months. So then they would come into the denominator regardless, right? So that's one concern. And now the other one is a 90-day. So we're still going to discuss it locally if we're going to hold these cases. I mean, because we do have automatic batches in LA that open on compliance, right? So we're gonna have to deal with that. So that's another thing that we have to deal with locally to not initiate that process because some of us do have batches. But so it's just those. I just want to bring that up that we would like to bring them in before the 30 days for that measure. But just that there's no negative action kind of we have to probably work with those batch jobs. But the step is a concern though, because we do have students that come in, participants that come in as students, and they are going to have likely an appraisal scheduled, right? So it's just, I don't know what's going to happen with that measure, right? That's just a concern. I think that's the only measure that I can think of that's impacted by these changes. So I just want to bring that up just to say, make sure there's discussions on that
Okay.
measure.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we are on the same
Mhm.
page.
Mhm.
That is the one that has jumped out to us
Mhm.
as, and I was being a little bit vague
Mhm.
when I said
Mhm.
that the performance measure subcommittee is going to need to adapt to
Mhm.
some new policy changes. This is
Mhm.
one of the things that I had in mind, right?
Okay. Mhm.
And so we want to get feedback. Would love for you to participate since
Mhm.
it sounds like you've been thinking about this.
Mhm.
Um, we'll be looking to figure out how to adapt that measure to best suit the new policy landscape for second cycle and moving forward. So yeah, appreciate you
Okay.
lifting up those thoughts.
Okay.
And I
Thank
think
you.
in the meantime, we are also open to ideas on how folks want to approach that measure until we're able to make the changes, right?
Mhm.
We could keep reporting it as is. We could sort of start masking it effective when the policy goes into place. I think this one is a July 1, 2026, but I don't have it. Um, there's a number of potential changes, right? So I don't
Mhm.
have all
Yeah.
of them memorized.
Okay.
We could start masking it by then if we don't have the new measure like ready to go. We could take a couple different options, and those are all things that we'd love to talk about in that subcommittee. So
Okay. Okay.
please join us.
Thank you. All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Leo. All right, looks like our next question is anonymous. Are there discussions around changes to the OCAT timeliness, i.e., increasing the 30-day timeline?
I believe we just addressed this, but if folks have further questions, let me know.
Okay, I think then we're going to move on to Maheen's question. Is there a target date to meet to discuss the impending concerns regarding the collection of data for the child care measure?
Sure. So the childcare access rate measure is one of the measures that we are continuing to work on in the performance measure subcommittee. We face a number of challenges in calculating this measure as it was written in ACL 1940, including that there's been significant policy and process changes since that ACL was written. And so we continue to meet to discuss options for how to best meet the original intent of that measure with the data that we have available. So we're looking to start reconvening those meetings again in late August or early September.
All right, pausing a little longer just in case there's a last minute question. Going once, going twice. Alrighty, I'll pass it on to Jessica to close us out.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our biannual Cal-OAR Forum. If you think of any questions that we did not cover, please don't hesitate to reach out to either your CQI specialist or the Cal-OAR inbox. And again, we are noting every question in the Q&A box to make sure we address each one after this forum, and we will send out the presentation after this forum. The next forum will be held in December 2025. The exact date is to be determined. Many of you may recall that these forums were originally held monthly during the early days of implementation, and then we adjusted them to a quarterly cadence as the initiative became more established. At this time, based on the feedback from partners, We believe a biannual cadence still meets our needs. And as we look forward to the end of the first cycle and the beginning of the second cycle, we will again reach out for feedback and may adjust the cadence again accordingly. So, again, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for your participation today.